I, 48, female, married my current husband Ryan, 41, male, 6 years ago. Before that, I was a single mother raising my son all alone after a bitter divorce with my first husband. It was a tough phase. I quit my job and started an online business to have the flexibility to raise my son. That's how I met Ryan, when he reached out to me for a mentorship request. We connected and eventually fell in love. After my son moved out for high school, we moved in together and got married. Coming to Ryan, he has a mother and 2 sisters. His father walked out on them 10 years back, and since then, Ryan has been taking care of her. When I heard about her, I could somehow relate to her, being a single mom to my son. Also, when I met her at a social event, she seemed to be so compassionate and friendly. Hence, when I got engaged to Ryan, I naively thought I was marrying into a family that would welcome me with open arms. I couldn't have been more wrong. My mother-in-law, Martha, is a traditional woman to her core, and not in a good way. She believed a wife should be demure, domestic, and dependent on her husband. That's what she has been all her life, a pile on her husband. And when he abruptly left, she had nothing to hold on to. Fortunately for her, she has a son, my husband, who provides for her, thinking it is his duty. She has raised her daughters also to be like hers, who are financially dependent on their husbands and hence couldn't bail Martha out in times of need. For Ryan, too, she wanted a submissive and meek woman. I was none of those things. I was seriously independent, running my own thriving business that I had built from scratch. I wasn't the kind of woman she envisioned for her only son, who, in her eyes, deserved someone refined and elegant, someone who spent her days at a spa or a nail parlor. After Ryan proposed to me, he took me home and we announced our engagement. She was disappointed and didn't even try to hide her disdain from me. She remarked, "You're not what I imagined for Ryan. He's always had such high standards." I'm surprised. Her voice was so cold that it sent chills down my spine. I just smiled politely, not able to comprehend at that instant. She said when she met me for the first time, she couldn't even imagine her son would fall for me. I guess that's the reason she was so sweet to me. When I asked why she would say that, she whispered, because of your advanced age, you know? Her cruel and wicked comments came flying from everywhere without any hesitation. She dropped this question, "You must easily be 10 to 12 years older than Ryan, isn't it?" He looked at her in disbelief, and she softened the blow by adding, "Don't mind. I'm just saying. I don't mean anything." Ryan was too embarrassed about the whole situation and apologized to me. We remained distant from Martha hence when we decided to get married. We did it with just 5 friends. Obviously, Martha got salty when she got to know about it, and she blamed me for brainwashing her son into this. Despite all this, Ryan continued to provide for her as she had no other support system. 2 years back, he took a leap of faith and quit his job to start something off his own. I backed him up and took the responsibility of the house while he could focus on building his business. I was aware that not only my husband's expenses were going to come to me, but also Martha's. I calibrated my finances. I didn't have anything major. I paid off my car mortgage, and my son was in his final year, which meant I was done paying for his education. It was just my house mortgage and monthly bills. I thought I could take the plunge. I thought I was shouldering my husband's responsibility and not doing it for Martha. However, 6 to 7 months back, life threw a surprise on us when Martha slipped and broke her hip. She was rushed to the ER, underwent surgery, and after a week, she was discharged. But who would take care of her? So, we took her to a nursing home facility and put her there. Having a full-time nurse is just too expensive for us. Even after she recovered from the fracture, she was still not in a condition to stay alone. She has gotten weak and developed arthritis as well. We had to put her in a care house. She was initially very sour about going there, but what choices did we have? Her daughters were too busy raising their children and taking care of their family. Ryan and I discussed our options. Moving her in with us was out of the question. She had made it clear she didn't want to live in our home, and frankly, I couldn't imagine the strain it would put on her marriage. So, a care house was the only feasible solution. It was an expensive arrangement, but I agreed to cover most of the costs. My business was doing well, and I wanted to support Ryan. Despite everything, I believed it was the right thing to do. Also, it was a cheaper option than hiring a full-time nurse. Though Martha insisted we hire a caregiver, I didn't have that much money, or rather, I didn't want to spend so much on her. She didn't do anything to earn my respect. You see, lots of parents have this ritual of discomfort and disapproval of their children's choices and partners, which is acceptable. But pulling them down and disrespecting them in every instance is terrible. And eventually, the parents come along, thinking about their children's happiness. Ryan expected the same from Martha, but over the years, her comments have only become sharper and more cutting. So, yeah, a care house was best for her. Martha, of course, had her own opinions. She created a lot of fuss on hearing that she would be moved to a care house, scoffing, "So you're just dumping me somewhere? You don't have to deal with me like an old piece of furniture. You're getting rid of me, your mother, the one who gave birth to you and raised you." I bit my tongue as I often did around her. Ryan assured her that she would come around once she settled in, and she did. But before that, she threw a lot of tantrums. The care house we chose for her was top-notch. She had a spacious room with a private bathroom, beautiful gardens, and caring staff. Ryan visited her regularly to check on her and see if she was comfortable. He would occasionally take her out, order her favorite meals, but no matter what he did, she remained ungrateful. She would often say things like, "You think this place impresses me? It's just a glorified prison." Her whining was not limited to Ryan. She would call up anyone and everyone to tell them how cruel her daughter-in-law was to shove her away in a care house. It wasn't that I cared what she or her daughters or anyone else thought about me, but it's certainly unpleasant to be at the receiving end of a hard blow every time. Fast forward to last month, there was an issue with my bank, and the payment to the care house didn't go through. I dropped by to give the check in person. I didn't intend to meet her. I don't know how she saw me at the counter. She started speaking loudly with the staff, ensuring I heard every bit of it. She was saying, "You know, my daughter-in-law is so unworthy of my son. She's not at all a match for his charm and intelligence. She's even 10 to 15 years older than him. She couldn't even give him a child. My baby would have no one to call him dad. He's not going to have anyone to take care of him in his old age. My family is going to end in this generation. What a doom." I don't know what magic she did to my son to wrap him around her fingers. By then, I'd already given the check. If not, I would have just walked out. I didn't even turn back to see her, but I was sure she was barely 30 feet away. It was so embarrassing when the lady at the counter saw the patient's name and my application, and then turned aside to look at Martha. She had a discomforting look, but she remained in her character, and I also maintained a straight face, though I was tearing up inside. Martha went on to say how I was using Ryan and playing the perfect wife to hide my materialistic nature. I walked outside, trying to hold back tears. I knew how cruel she had always been, but listening to it firsthand had felt so terrible. I sat inside my car and called Ryan. I told him I can't do this anymore. I've put up with his mother's disrespect for years, for I paid her a care, and she still treats me like I'm nothing. I won't keep sacrificing my dignity for someone who doesn't respect me. I was crying so profusely and running out of breath in between that he wasn't able to follow me. I asked him to come home, and we would discuss the matter. We had a long conversation. I told him what happened, and he was horrified. He admitted that Martha had been toxic, and this time she crossed the line. We do have to do something about it. I laid it open and clear to him that I won't be paying for her anymore. It's on him how he's going to manage her expenses. I said, "She's your mother. If you want to keep supporting her, that's your choice, but I'm done." He got silent. He knew I was serious. He's in financial trouble. He's working on his business, but barely making enough to take care of his own living expenses. I said, "I'm ready to bury your bills, since you're my husband and I want to support you, but I don't have any obligations towards your mother." He understood my point of view and supported my decision. We sat down and reviewed our finances. Without my contribution, Martha couldn't stay in the same care house either. She has to be downgraded or pull out from there and left alone to deal with it. Ryan is currently searching for a more affordable option, one that is still affordable but less luxurious. I'm sure she's not going to take it well, that she has to share a bathroom with her roommate, and worse, maybe share a room as well. I'm not looking for advice or something. I just wrote it like a journal to make myself feel better. Martha sounds like she's made it her personal mission to be a thorn in your side, no matter how much you've done for her. You're absolutely within your rights to set boundaries and prioritize your own mental health. It's not unreasonable to expect a little gratitude, or at the very least, a basic request from someone you've sacrificed so much for. Ryan stepping up to find a more affordable solution is the right call. It's his responsibility, and it's good that he recognizes that. Update 1. I've been reading your comments and wanted to post an update on how things unraveled after Ryan and I made the decision to stop covering Martha's care home fees. Ryan had a facility within his budget and went to Martha for the confrontation. He called her out for talking crap about me, and needless to say, she denied it, saying I was just poisoning his mind with false information. She claimed she has never talked badly about me in front of anyone. He asked about the snide remarks she passed at her face. She shed fake tears and said those were just meant to be friendly jokes and nothing else. Ryan was like, whatever it be, she needs to be downgraded. As expected, she didn't take it well. She freaked out, knowing she had to share a room and a bathroom. Months ago, she wouldn't want to live in this one care home, and now she doesn't want to go because here she's getting everything without moving her lazy butt. He explained his financial conditions, and that the existing one was beyond his means. She immediately suggested he take money from me. What a witch she is. One hand she resented me, and on the other, she shamelessly wants my money. Ryan said she has burned the bridges, and now there's no way I would pitch in for her. Predictably, she flew into a rage, accusing him of being an ungrateful son and a simp man who was a puppet for his wife. How could she stop there? She had to come to me. She called me all kinds of names in the process. She yelled at him loud enough for all the staff to hear. That woman has pointed you against your own mother. If it weren't for her, you'd still love and respect me. Ryan pointed out that if she could say such vile things about me in front of him, she surely is capable of doing any excellence to the bathroom for me in front of strangers. Ryan walked out of her room and gave an official notice to the care house warden that Martha would be vacating in a month. 1 month, Martha made his life terrible. I remained out of it, though Martha and her daughters tried to drag me into it. But I kept smiling, maintained my sanity, and let Ryan handle the matter. Ryan admitted he was going through the most disturbing time we've had. He was huge stock to convince Ryan to leave her in the existing care or, better, take her home and hire a full-time nurse. Joke's on her. She thought he could hire a nurse. She even tried to guilt-trip him, sobbing about how she gave him life and sacrificed everything for him, only to be discarded like trash. She demanded that he fix this, meaning convince me to continue paying for her care. He refused to be manipulated by any of her tricks. When none of these worked, Martha escalated things in the ugliest way. She began throwing tantrums at the carer's house, refused to eat, and even berated the staff. She even attempted to sabotage her own move by calling her daughters and extended family to rally them against Ryan and me. She asked them to convince Ryan and change his mind. Her daughters, of course, jumped in like saviors for their mother without thinking twice. They called Ryan, pressuring him to do the right thing and keep her in the original care house. He calmly told them, "Sorry, your mother too. Why don't you both consider contributing half of it, and we'll keep her where she wants to stay? You've been living off your husbands for years. It's time to keep up." They didn't earn and were dependent on their husbands financially, hence couldn't pitch in. Ryan suggested if not financially, they both should take turns to become the primary caregiver for Martha. Neither of them responded well to that, saying that they had kids and a house to take care of. Ryan said, in that case, we also have our own life to deal with, so either they step up or keep shut. Obviously, they blamed me for everything, and I was the one pulling the strings. After a lot of gaslighting and guilt-tripping, they hung up, but none of them volunteered to pitch in. The matter got so chaotic when Martha refused to leave her existing room that the warden asked her to package her belongings as the date for her to vacate was approaching. She made such a scene that the staff had to intervene, and Ryan got a call to knock sense into her, but she refused to speak to him. We thought the storms had settled later that night, but she left dozens of voicemails, saying things like, "She's tearing apart her family, and you're choosing her over your own blood." What really struck a nerve with Ryan, though, was when she said, "I should have raised you to be more of a man, then you wouldn't let a woman control you like this." That was the moment Ryan decided he'd had enough. He replied that he was cutting her off, and from now on, she was on her own. Obviously, Martha lost her mind and called him all sorts of names under the sun, but he blocked her number for the first time in so many years. I saw him crying in despair. He realized how much he'd bent over backwards for her, only to have her treat him like a failure for not living up to her impossible expectations. He broke down, saying, "I've spent my whole life trying to make her happy, and it's never enough." I couldn't express my happiness to him, but I can see it there. I was over the moon. This was his best decision ever. I hugged him and confronted him. "I'm just waiting for the 30 days to pass and for Martha to get kicked out of the care house. Call me cruel, but I want to see her rot in the government facility, or even worse, struggle at her house and fend for herself. Sorry, I can't feel bad for a woman who would go so far to humiliate others." Martha's antics at the care house and her refusal to leave really on how unwilling she is to take accountability. It's one thing to resist change, but to drag staff, family, and even the warden into the web of drama is beyond unreasonable. Saying that Ryan's being controlled by you is just a desperate attempt to hurt him and deflect from her own failings as a mother. Update 2. I had to write this update as how things were going, so satisfying for me after 1 month. Martha was asked to vacate a room after throwing all sorts of tantrums. She finally packed her stuff and went back to her house. She called up her daughters for help. They panicked after Ryan backed out. The financial burden now fell squarely on their shoulders. Both of them tried to convince Martha to behave and patch things up with Ryan, but she refused. She told him, "I don't need him." She conveniently forgot Ryan had been the whole sole reason she was in a nice care house for so long. Martha pressured them to bear her expenses as she was their responsibility too. They bit their tongue and grudgingly agreed to split their finances between themselves, yet couldn't cater to Martha's demands for hiring a full-time employee. Initially, they hired a cleaning lady to vacuum the house and clean the bathroom once a week for Martha's food arrangements. They loaded her fridge with ready-to-eat meals, which lasted for a month. However, Martha didn't like the arrangements because she still had to do her laundry and dishes. She'd been throwing tantrums at the cleaning staff, and due to her bitter tongue, 2 of them already left in a month's time. I won't be surprised if the agency blacklists Martha because no one wants to put up with such a nuance as customer. She had become a fat butt by living in the luxury of a care house, and now she wanted everything at her fingertips. Boy, you need a fat check for that, huh? The last we heard, her daughters were scrambling to figure out how to afford even a downgraded care facility. They started cutting back on their own expenses and have grown to yell and scream whenever either of them visits. She still feels like she was right, and what Ryan did was evil. She hadn't spent years tearing me down and taking advantage of Ryan's generosity. Now, it's time for her to reap what she sowed. Ryan, meanwhile, has been doing much better. Cutting his mother off wasn't easy, but he says it feels like a weight has been lifted off of his shoulders. Our relationship has also improved now that we're not constantly worried about how to handle her demands. We've also taken a vacation, which was a long period because of Martha's negative presence. I wish this ended here, but I know there will probably be more drama down the line. Martha isn't going to go quietly, but Ryan and I are focused on building our life together. Thanks for reading. Writing all this has been incredibly therapeutic for me. Honestly, I'm not surprised that her daughters are already buckling under the pressure, and it's only a matter of time before they lose patience altogether. Honestly, it sounds like they're getting a taste of what Ryan endured for so long, and maybe now they'll understand why he walked away. Even if paid professionals can't deal with her, it's no wonder how her own family is unraveling under the strain. Anyway, let her daughters deal with the fallout. It's not your problem anymore.